This podcast is hosted on podhome.fm, the most modern podcast hosting platform. Podhome offers unlimited episodes and podcasts, and unlimited use of Podhome AI, which generates transcripts, clips, chapters, title suggestions, show notes, and much more. And all of that for just $15.99 a month or $185 per year. That's a steal. So go to podhome.fm and start your 30-day trial now. And enjoy the show with Joe.
Transmitting live from the Asylum Studios, deep in the bowels of Southwest Texas. It's the Joe Rooz Show. The show where we talk about anything and everything. Where nothing is sacred, nothing is watered down, and nothing is PC.
Alrighty. Hey folks, this is Joe Rooz, and it is great to be with you once again, transmitting live, of course, at the Asylum, and doing the very best we can to bring you the best quality talk radio we could muster without all the bluster. Welcome to the show, folks. It is great to have you here. Hope you guys are having a great day. Had a blast today. Today was a fantastic day. Fantastic, as we say back home. But we have an incredible guest lined up for you tonight. So tonight, we're going to be diving into a topic that affects every American, whether they realize it or not. The United States Constitution, civil liberties, and the growing debate over government accountability. Our guest is a constitutional advocate, a civic educator. Her name is Jen Brown. We'll be talking about what constitutional rights actually mean in everyday life, how citizens can recognize government overreach, and why understanding our founding principles matters now more than ever. And if you've been listening to this show for any period of time, you know that this is a conversation that we have had many times, guests or no guests. So whether you're deeply involved in politics or you're just trying to make sense of what's happening around you, settle in, grab yourself your coffee, because we're going to need it tonight, and join us for what promises to be an incredibly fascinating conversation. But of course, before we get into that, let's take care of the housekeeping stuff first. So if you would, please don't forget to head over to our website, joerooz.com. That's joerooz.com. When you get over there, look for that contact form. It's up there hidden somewhere in the little pancake in the upper right corner of the page there. Open that thing up and send us off a message. Let us know whatever you're thinking, whatever's on your heart, whatever's on your mind, any questions, comments, cares, or concerns that you might have. You might even have a complaint. You shouldn't, but you might have a complaint. You can send that on over to us as well. We'll give it the just attention it deserves. Or perhaps you have a suggestion for a guest or maybe a topic you'd like us to cover on the show. Let us know. We would love to hear from you guys. Now, if you're anything like me, you hate using the contact forms because those stupid CAPTCHA things, they drive you crazy. Like the buses and the crosswalks and all that junk. Don't need that stuff, but they make you do it. So if you don't want to use that, fine. Email me directly at info@joerooz.com. That's info@joerooz.com. And another great idea is you can use the comment section right down there below on Rumble or on YouTube. If you're still on YouTube for whatever reason you are, you can check them out on YouTube as well. And we will respond, of course, always. We always respond to our comments. So make sure that you drop one to us. Also, please don't forget that this is a live show, weeknight, 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. Also, our Sunday show every Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. Central Time, 3 p.m. Eastern, our Bible study show. Make sure you come and check that out as well. Always a lot of fun. And another very important thing to do is remember the algorithm. Remember the algorithm. And all that simply means is like, subscribe, and share the show with your friends, your family, and your followers. That way you'll help us spread the love, the joy, the complete experience of our little show here. Plus, it pisses people off, so make sure you do that too, because that's what we live to do, right? Okay. Now, also, tonight's connection is brought to us by Podmatch. What is Podmatch? Well, Podmatch is like Tinder for podcasters. The guest puts together a profile, the host puts together a profile, the algorithm, keyword, puts the profiles together, you match or pass. It's a great program. It's a great program to be a part of. It's a great group to be working with, and I've been with them now for a little over a year. They are fantastic. So what's the key thing about Podmatch? Well, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but most podcast hosts and guests spend hours researching connections, coordinating interviews, and of course working on administrative tasks while really only spending about maybe 10% of their time working on what really matters, and that's bringing you, the audience, impactful podcasts. Podmatch does is Podmatch enables podcast guests and hosts to reclaim that time through automations and through streamlined processes. So what they can do is focus on what really matters, and that's bringing content that serves listeners. So head over to podmatch.com and then check out our site, podmatch.com/member/Joe. That's podmatch.com/member/Joe. And you never know. You check it out. You might like it. You want to stick around. You sign up through the site. And you never know. You might end up being a guest here on the show with us, which would be great. So check it out. podmatch.com/member/Joe. That's podmatch.com/member/Joe. All righty. Now, with all of the fun stuff put away, tonight we're joined by Jen Brown, founder of Utah Citizens for the Constitution, civic educator, constitutional advocate, longtime public policy activist. Jen's work has ranged from protecting children online, which is very important, and publishing research on adolescent brain development to leading statewide constitutional education efforts. More recently, she's become a prominent voice on government accountability, civil liberties, and the growing debate over where legitimate government authority ends and government overreach begins. Now, we're going to dig into the background a little bit. We got our some really great constitutional issues to talk about, and why she believes ordinary Americans need to pay closer attention to the systems that govern them. Jen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, Joe.
It's great to have you here. We've been looking forward to this, actually, from when we made our first connection on Podmatch. Your profile really spoke out to me because I love talking about this stuff. I have my pocket Constitution sitting right there in front of me. I carry one in my bag at work. I do all that. I carry wherever I go. I got it,
I
And
love it.
it's one of those things that it's probably the most important document that we have in this country. And it's a shame that more people don't understand what is actually in the U.S. Constitution. It's not hard to read. It's not long to read. It's written so that the average everyday American can sit down and read it and understand it. I don't know about today with today's modern educational system and the nonsense they teach instead of how to read and how to do math. And I don't know if they can read it anymore, but I can read it. And if I can read it, you can read it. So people need to understand what our government stands for and what the government that the people established. And something I'd like to remind the audience over and over and over again, I know I'm stepping all over you for this one, but the people of the states created the federal government. It's not the other way around. And the Constitution of the United States is a limitation on the government, not the people. So we're going to get into that here in a little bit.
Very well said.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That made my night. Somebody understands me. That's great. But the thing is, though, a lot of people actually do, throw around the phrase, constitutional rights. Well, tonight we're going to talk about those. We're going to get into that. But before we get into all that great stuff, I want to get into your background a little bit, let the people get to know who you are. So now you didn't start your career in politics or constitutional activism. Why don't you walk us through your journey and how you ended up doing this kind of work?
Yes, well, by profession, I'm a dentist. So when I went to dental school, I never thought that I would be so involved in this work. That wasn't even on the radar at all for me. So I went to dental school in Omaha, Nebraska at Creighton University. And then my husband and I moved back to Utah, and we had 5 boys in less than 8 years. Wow. So we just said, you know what, it's time for us to have our family. And that's definitely what we did. So we have 5 boys, and we're so grateful for each one of those for them. And the thing that's ironic, I tell people, is I don't like sports, roughhousing, or the outdoors. And I was sent all these boys. So
so you have to kind of like it by default, or at least put a good game face on and pretend to like it.
Exactly. I know. And so, but what happened is about 15 years ago is when I started to get involved, and I felt very directed to work on the protection of the youth. And so that is how I got started. And I reached out to my state senator about my concerns, and we ended up running a bill. And that was my first experience of how you pass legislation in the state of Utah. And I know I can't believe it's been so long ago now, but I have continued to be very involved, and it's just gotten more and more busy as every year has gone by. And so we still definitely always work to protect the youth. I started this organization about 3.5 years ago, and we focus heavily on the division of powers as found in the Constitution. And you said it so well, that the Constitution is meant to limit the federal government. You just explained that very well. And a lot of people might not realize that, but that is the heart and soul of the Constitution. It was to prevent the federal government from getting too big, because our founders knew that when power accumulates, it almost without exception leads to tyranny, or leads to the citizens not fully enjoying the rights that they should have.
That's absolutely
and
right.
So that's something that we really focus on, is what should Utah have jurisdiction over, and what does the federal government have jurisdiction over. So it has definitely kept me very busy, and we're very involved in the legislative session. An interesting thing about Utah is we have the shortest legislative session in the country. Our session is only 7 weeks out of the year. And so that's the only time when bills are passed. And when that is in, it is just crazy how busy it is. So
I can imagine. I can imagine. But you see, that in and of itself is exactly what our founding generation envisioned for government.
exactly.
Not to be in the seat of authority or the seat of power for, well, in perpetuity. You're there for a short period of time, you do your legislative work, and then you go back to your community and you resume
Exactly.
whatever it is that you were doing. If you were a farmer, you went back to farming. If you were a doctor, you went back to doctor. You know?
You're exactly right. And that's what they do. The legislators, almost all of them have a separate, full-time job, and it does help them to keep more in touch with the people.
Yeah.
And sometimes we'll have people make the suggestion, oh, maybe we should make the session longer, but but many of us say, no, that's the last thing that we want to do. That is something that helps Utah, that we have such a short session when the government can be putting things in that may or may not be good for the citizens.
Right.
So it's definitely a positive thing that it's so short.
It's like I always say, whenever the Congress, I'm talking the federal level, whenever Congress is not in session, it's better for the country.
Exactly. Yep.
You know,
they're not able to do any damage if they're not in session. So that is good.
Exactly. And I'm relatively new to Texas, but I've gotten involved in some political movements here in Texas that keep a good close eye on what goes on in the State House. And I was very surprised when I got here just how horrible the State House is here in Texas. As legislative priorities are not met. There's a lot of eyebrow raising activities that go on in the State House. And I feel like a lot of the state representatives, not just here, but overall, are just auditioning for the federal job, when the opportunity arises for them to make that kind of a move. But,
Right.
And I came from New York City, and New York State is probably one of the most corrupt legislative bodies in the entire country. So the state government, people need to understand, is really where your seat of authority is. We kind of digress from there a little bit, but
Exactly.
the state government is where the seat of authority really is. And our founding fathers knew that, and they understood that, and that's why they wanted it to stay that way. They wanted a small general government. It wasn't federal yet. It was a general government when the government was first founded. It had very, very limited powers. I think they have more powers at the time of the Constitution being ratified than was originally in the Articles of Confederation. So they did not want a central, powerful government to dictate. Why? Because no accountability.
It doesn't end well for the citizens, and history proves it over and over again. And they had fought the Revolutionary War. Think of the sacrifice, the blood that was shed, and they knew it wasn't easy. If a government is out of control, it isn't fixed easily. And they weren't about wanting to go through something like that again. And so they put so much effort and thought into how do we really try to limit the federal government through the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that they did that is they said, well, we've got to list the things the federal government has jurisdiction over. We'll actually write them down in the Constitution. And then everything not written down is the state jurisdiction and the jurisdiction of the people. And that's also what our 10th Amendment says. Those things that are not specifically given to the federal government belong to the people and to the states. And so, I feel like sometimes people might feel that the Constitution is a little bit overwhelming, or, they don't have time to spend a lot of time studying it. But I can tell you, you don't have to spend very much time to understand 90% of the Constitution. All you need to do is remember what we said here today, is that it's to limit the federal government, and then go to Article 1, Section 8, which is the list of enumerated powers, the specific responsibility given to Congress. And if you understand that, you've got the bulk of the Constitution down.
That's right. That's absolutely right. I'm trying to pull it up on the screen here for myself so I can point out a few very specific things.
Yes.
I should have done that before we started the show, but I didn't. So.
Oh, you're fine. And while you pull that up, I'll tell your listeners that one thing is they knew that if it's going to be a jurisdiction of the federal government, it has to be uniform throughout the states. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is what always needs to be uniform. And I'll give a few examples of that. Are, for example, standardized weights and measurements. So of course those couldn't be different in different states.
Right.
Creating a postal service. Think if in one state a stamp cost something and in another state it had a different price. Obviously it just wouldn't work. Another thing are pass copyright and patent laws. Establish the coin, our coin, and regulate the value of money.
Right.
And actually, during and leading up to the Revolutionary War, different colonies had their own money. And the founders knew this cannot continue if we're going to be able to make it as a country. And a lot of people might not know that the Revolutionary War ended in 1783, and then the Constitutional Convention was 1787. Well, in that 4-year period, America almost didn't make it. It was on the verge of collapse. They had the Articles of Confederation, which weren't strong enough to create unity among the states. And it was just so close to the experiment for self-government not working. And then the Constitutional Convention was held, and they were given the job of, you've got to fix this. We've got to be able to function and have some cohesion as states. So they ended up creating and writing the new document, the Constitution. And it saved America.
Question. September 17th is what?
Constitution Day.
Did you know that you could ask any high schooler today and they will not know that?
Yes, it's such an important day. I know. Yep, that's a Constitution Day, and that is the day that, the Constitution was put into motion. Such an important day to be celebrated.
Yeah, to me, it's the second most important day in the country's founding.
Absolutely.
The first, of course, being the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. I mean,
right.
That's
and
go ahead.
You
Sorry.
bringing up the Declaration of Independence is a good time to remind everybody that the 250th anniversary is this year, and it's coming so soon.
That's right. It's just a few weeks away.
I know. It's such an important milestone in our history. And so it's been really fun this year to so much celebration and talk about the Declaration of Independence. And, a few comments about that is the Declaration was radical at the time. The fact that they put down that all men are created equal was not something that was taught or generally believed. And it truly did start the human rights revolution. It was truly the starting point to an understanding of the value of each person and their unalienable rights that come from God.
I absolutely correct. I find it very interesting how the left today wants to hijack that and make it into something that it was not intended ever to be. Yes, our founding generation, generational things change over time, of course. And I lost my train of thought, so I'm on a little bit of a rabbit trail. They look at that all men are created equal, so on and so forth. And then they throw up at you that, well, they were slaveholders and they were this and they were that. Yes, I know. That was the culture of the time.
Exactly. They were born into that.
Right.
And what is not known by a lot of people is that in Thomas Jefferson's version of the Declaration of Independence, he denounced slavery.
Yes.
And that is not very well known. Unfortunately, the political realities of that time did not allow that to be into the final document, or it just simply would not have passed. But there had to be a starting point. There had
Correct.
to be a starting point for human rights, and that was the starting point. And these men sacrificed so much for these principles, and it's absolutely something that needs to be celebrated, and something that changed the world in probably, there's no document that changed the world more than the Declaration of Independence.
Absolutely
and
correct.
So, and so like you said, these were radical concepts at the time, and they were really stepping out, putting their necks out, saying, we feel that all people are created equal, whatever their race is, whatever gender they have.
That's right.
And yes, as far as slavery goes, they were born into that. But they, and as we know, Thomas Jefferson especially, he condemned slavery in his draft of the Declaration of Independence. But, and people might say, well, why didn't he just let his slaves go? But the thing is what were they gonna do? They were in such a difficult environment. It's not like they could just go out and become free in society where they were at. And so I think most people felt the best thing that were opposed to that is to keep them and their families together, and then, treat them well and with respect, and make sure that they were taken care of properly. But yes, this was the starting point. It had to start somewhere, and the Declaration of Independence needs to absolutely be celebrated as we're coming up on July 4th.
Absolutely. And, with the closing line, I think, of the Declaration is what? We pledge our lives, our fortune, and our sacred honor.
Yes, exactly.
And they did. And many of them died horribly. Many of them lived in exile for the remainder of their lives. Families were destroyed.
Exactly.
Not too long ago, I did I taught a series on my Bible study show on America's founding and America's Christian founding. And I talked about this. I talked about this extensively, about how so many of these men that put their lives and their families on the line, and how it destroyed them. But they did it for posterity. They did it for the future of
exactly.
And the idea of self-government.
Well, that is just it. And you're right, some of them lost so much. And the thing that is, I'll read this very quickly. It says, William Ellery, so he was one of the signers. His name was William Ellery. He knew the consequences could be serious. It was August 1776 when most members of the Continental Congress were gathered to sign the Declaration of Independence. I was determined to see how they all looked as they signed what might be their death warrant, he later recalled. I mean, think of that, and it says August because then they actually signed the final copy in August, but it was voted on and set into place on July 4th. So,
right.
But I mean, he knew he was standing there with these men saying, we may be signing our death warrants. That takes a lot of courage to do that.
It absolutely does. And, the other thing too, a lot of people have the misconception that this was all done in one shot. Like everybody came and everybody sat there like the painting, they all signed and there's a whole big thing, celebration around it. But it wasn't like that at all. The capital at the time was in Philadelphia. Philadelphia was under threat of siege. the representatives were running in and out of Philadelphia whenever they possibly could, signing the document, and then going back out to either into service or back into their communities and with their families and all that. It wasn't like the painting, it wasn't that clean, beautiful room. It was not like that at all.
Exactly. It was under very stressful conditions that this took place. And they knew, if this doesn't end on our side, we're going to be in big trouble. And, how confident could you feel going up against the most powerful military in the world at that time?
That's
so, again, we really do need to look and learn about the signers of this document, because they did what a lot of us probably wouldn't have dared to do.
I don't think you'll ever find a generation of men like our founding generation again, ever. I mean, and a lot of people don't understand either. It wasn't like an overwhelming majority of the citizenry in the country wanted to separate from England. It was a vocal minority who did, and brought it to fruition. And I was looking at I'm looking at the Declaration right now, and something. Of course, I've talked about this before many times. It lists 27 grievances against the Crown, and the funny thing is, if you actually take the time and read these grievances, how many of these grievances that were listed in our Declaration of Independence does the federal government today do and have a hand in?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point to bring up.
It's amazing. It's amazing when you look at what we separated ourselves from and what we've taken upon ourselves. And it's not one particular party's fault. It's equal fault in this whole thing.
Exactly.
And the states as well. The states kept on ceding more and more authority to this federal monstrosity that we have now.
Yep. The states allowed a lot of their jurisdiction to be taken, and most of it for federal dollars. Oh, I'm so glad we have those federal dollars, since the federal government is in so much debt. They're not even real dollars. And
that's one issue.
Our souls for it.
Right, of course, that's one issue, that there's nothing backing our currency anymore. And the other issue is that, of course, they can just keep printing it. Well, here's a question. If they can keep printing money whenever they need it, why do they have to collect taxes? Anyway.
Yes, that is true.
So, not original thought with me. I've heard that someplace else before. But, well, I was going to say something about it too. And the federal money. I mean, the federal money. States say, no, we need federal money, but it's your money, dumbass.
Exactly.
Excuse my language. I'm sorry, but
yep, it's the states' money. I mean, they take it. The states take it from the people. Then the federal government takes it from the states, and then they just circle it around and give it back to them.
Yeah,
but being in control.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
Return.
Yes. Well, I'm on the Federalism Commission here in the state of Utah. It's a legislative committee. I am a non-voting member, but the whole emphasis of this is state jurisdiction, state authority, and this is what we just spend the meetings. This is all we're talking about, and what can we do to try to bring more of our authority back, but so much of it comes down to those federal dollars. Yeah. And so it's something that I wonder, if the federal government gets, farther and farther into debt, they may literally come to where they can't give the federal dollars. And, in some ways that might be a blessing, because I feel like there has to be something big happen for the states to break some of those ties. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out with the federal debt. But we've talked about that a lot on this commission, and that the states need to be having contingency plans, because it's probably just a matter of time before the federal government is not going to be able to send all this money that the states count on. And it may be a day of reckoning for the states. They're going to be forced to look at their own state budgets and to have more autonomy, which ultimately that would end up being a good thing. That's what the Constitution meant, was for the states to have a lot of autonomy.
Yeah, well, look, the Constitution of the United States only has 18 enumerated powers assigned to the federal government on record. All right, I sum it up just like this. There's the only thing the federal government's really responsible for is to provide for the common defense and to regulate interstate commerce. That's really it.
Right.
That's
exactly.
That's all 18. That's all 18 enumerated powers summed up into two. Okay.
It's so true, and everything else was meant to be done at the state level.
That's correct.
And it's the genius of the Constitution is the fragmentation of power. And the fragmentation of power is essential for individual liberty. Mm-hmm. And so every citizen, like you said, talking about state government, that's where I really recommend people get involved. A lot of people think, oh, it's the federal government where we've got to try to be involved at. I bet most people don't realize how much influence you can have at a state level. And there's so much that goes on there. And it's just really the place where citizens should get involved. Yeah. And what happens at the state trickles up towards the federal government. If the states are being well run, well managed, it's going to positively impact the federal government. And so that's definitely my encouragement to everyone.
Yeah, I agree with you. Here's a trivia question for the audience. How many branches of government does the Constitution authorize the federal government to establish? Only one, the Navy. That's it. That's the only military service that the Constitution authorizes for the federal government to draw up, and that's the Navy, to provide and maintain a Navy. Everything else is state. It's militias.
Yep.
That's it.
It's so true. And everything was done with the lens of how do we continue to handcuff the federal government and not let it get too big. And everything in the Constitution was written through that lens. And it's what will save us today, just as it saved us all those years ago. It's the same principles that will save us. And so it comes back to that fragmentation of power. It comes back to what are the enumerated powers? Let's talk about them, and how do we bring more jurisdiction, back to the states. And so it's just amazing how transcendent these rules and principles are for any time. It applies to us now just as much as it did back in 1787, where they needed the Constitution to save America.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. It's really interesting when you actually, as you're talking, I'm reading, this amazing document, and it's so simple. It really is incredibly simple, and legislators have made it more complicated than what it really, really is. And it's
so
a shame.
True.
And it's an absolute shame. Now, my personal feeling is this, all right, and this is where I tend to get in trouble when I talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. So a couple of years ago, I read a fantastic book, and I've been trying to get, I still have my copy, but I wanted to get additional copies I wanted to give out. And interestingly enough, you can't get it anymore. It's out of print. But it was called, the name of the book just flipped out of my head. It's Rethinking the American Union for the 21st Century.
Oh, interesting.
And it's a series of essays written by scholars, and they talk about what the future of this American Union is. That's another misconception I think a lot of people have. I was going to actually ask you about some misconceptions people have about the Constitution. A lot of people think that the Constitution establishes one nation. It does not. It does not. And I hate to say this because everybody, the Pledge of Allegiance, one nation under God, indivisible. this is not one nation. The American Union, think about it in context of like the European Union. Okay, we did it first. I get it. American exceptionalism here. But all we are is look at the European Union, and what is it? It is a union of individual sovereign countries that work together for commerce, trade, defense, and so on and so forth. It's the same exact thing that we have here in the United States.
Yep.
Okay, we are 50 independent sovereign nations. State means nation. State means country. Okay, we use that for foreign countries. We say what? The state of Israel, the state of the state of North Korea, the state of South Korea. State means a country, an independent sovereign country. So the state of Texas is an independent sovereign country. The state of Utah is an independent sovereign country who has joined voluntarily a union to share in mutual defense and common trade. That's what it all is. And people don't understand it. They think that if it was one nation, there'd be no borders, there would be no state governments. It would be one powerful central government, which is ultimately the plan, which is why they stopped teaching this stuff back in the late 70s, early 80s. They stopped teaching American civics. They started teaching European history and all that. They don't talk about American history anymore, at least not in a positive sense. Now it's all just that woke bullshit. Excuse my language. I'm sorry. I'm getting cranky. But that's the problem. So our Constitution is designed to protect the states against the federal government, as we said earlier, and again, the states just keep ceding and ceding and ceding. Now, back to what I was saying about the book. So the book lays out some very interesting possibilities for the future, and one of which I subscribe to. I think is eventually the inevitability that will happen. The federal monstrosity is going to get so big and so bad and so intrusive that it's going to get to the point where it's bad enough where enough people say, we're done. Mm-hmm. And you're going to start having break-offs. Now, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but there are several independent movements around the country. I think 25 states have some organization working within the legislative process to separate from the United States. Texas is one of them. California is one of them. California is actually closer to it than any other state. Vermont has the oldest recorded independence movement in the country, where they actually have brought before the legislature the proposition to separate from the United States. Texas too. Texas came within just a handful of votes to get it onto the debate floor.
Interesting.
So I'm part of an organization here in Texas called the Texas Nationalist Movement, which is an organization that is actively seeking the possibility of separating and having Texas stand on its own as a free and independent country again. And I support that. I think that's inevitable. That's going to end up happening. Now, am I wishing the country to fall apart? No, of course not. I'm an American. I love my country. I love everything that it stood for 250 years. Mm-hmm. Yes, we've had some bad moments. Absolutely. No country on earth is perfect, but we're pretty close to it, I think, my opinion. All right.
Definitely. These principles it's the principles that are perfect. It's trying to implement them. Yep.
Exactly. You're looking at flawed human beings trying to implement something that's perfect.
Yep.
It's not easy. Okay. But I do believe that at some point, though, this country is going to break up. And states are going to separate. States are going to go on their own. Look, if Texas left the union right now, Texas immediately becomes the 8th largest economy in the world. In the world.
Wow.
Not just, in the world. So Texas has all the natural resources it needs to stand on its own. Texas has plenty of ranch land, farmland, wind resources, water resources, oil, everything you need to stand on your own, Texas has. It's very, very possible. Now, the organization I'm part of has over 600,000 registered supporters. So there's a possibility. Now, will it happen in my lifetime? I don't think so. But I'm here. I'm going to do the best I can to promote the idea of freedom and liberty. We don't have freedom and liberty. We think we do. They tell us we do. But you need a license to do everything. You need government permission to do everything. You can't go fishing. You can't collect rainwater. They won't rainwater. Why would they not let you collect rainwater?
Exactly.
And these are all things that the federal government has instituted, and they've done it through the states. So I know people say, well, no, it's not a federal driver's license, it's a state license. Well, who do you think pushed the states to do it? So anyway, that's my 2 cents on the whole thing. So sorry.
The bottom line is with the national debt, I mean, something's
gotta give.
It can't continue like this.
No, it can't.
So
where are we now?
Yeah,
what is it, $37 trillion?
I know. It's just terrible. And it is very worrisome for sure.
And the income tax, they established an income tax in this country. It's supposedly to pay off World War I. I think it's paid off by now. It's safe to say it's paid off by now. And then, of course, it's only temporary. Just like every government program, it's only temporary. It's only going to be for this period of time, but yet somehow, some way, it's still here.
Oh, yep, exactly.
I am like stepping all over your stuff, so I'm sorry. I'm not really interviewing.
Exactly right. If you cede power to government, it doesn't give it back. That is just the way that it is. So, I know.
Absolutely. So I did have some more questions for you, because I know I took up a lot of our time just talking about, just shooting from the hip here.
Great.
Let's see. I did want to ask you. There was something about there was a legal case that I wanted to ask you about.
Yes.
Rubicon, right?
Yep.
So I'm really not familiar. I did some research on it before the show, but I'm not really familiar with it too much. Can you break that down for us? What exactly is that?
Yes, that was so upsetting. It's something that happened in Utah. So Rubicon is a landscaping and snow removal business. And apparently the attorney general, so our state attorney general, they were trying to get a contract with the federal government for funding for, they wanted to get that funding for human trafficking. They wanted to get this money to help fight it. But in order to qualify for it, they had to be working on a certain number of cases with human trafficking. So what happened with Rubicon is they took all of their legitimate employees and they reclassified them in basically 1 day's time as that they were being human trafficked. And so the attorney general allowed that to happen. And then they came into their offices. They let the press come in and said that they were charging them with 96 felonies. And guess what has been dropped? All the charges, because there wasn't any truth in it. And it's really an example of overreach and what it did to the people in that company. Just, the entrepreneurs, they had started that company. And so it just shows an injustice to one person has got to be an injustice to all of us. And we can't let things like that just go. And so here in Utah, we're trying to bring more awareness so that people know what happened. And then they have just filed a counter lawsuit now after, they were able to get things settled down a bit. But it's just an egregious example of government overreach, which we just have to fight it at every turn. And we can't just let things go when overreach happens.
Right, and of course, just to clarify, this isn't we're not talking about a federal matter here, right?
Right.
This is a state matter.
Yep, this happened in Utah, and it was with the Utah Attorney General's office. And so, yep, this was a state issue, but what it did to their company and to the people, can you believe they arrested several of them, and they spent 3 years ago Thanksgiving in jail, several of them, for nothing. They had not done one thing wrong. And so it's just really sobering. It's been really upsetting that happened here in Utah. And like I said, the charges have all been dropped. They were never found guilty of anything.
Yeah.
And that pretty much says it all. So
It does. But so what does a case like this tell us about the balance, I guess, between law enforcement authority and individual rights?
Well, I think as I've thought about this case, and I've been knowledgeable about what was going on, some of the details as they were taking place, is, first of all, it's really important for people to know what their rights are. And so if you don't know what your rights are, then it's harder to be able to stand up for yourself. But yes, and then with this case with Rubicon, they stood so strong. They just right from the get-go said, we are completely fighting this. We did not do anything wrong. And they started putting their case together. But I think the best thing that we can do is we've got to bring awareness to it, because things like this can't happen if there's too much scrutiny. Like, if the more citizens are aware of what's going on, it stops overreach, because it requires not very many people to know so that they can do it without an uprising from the people. And so it really does highlight the importance of people being involved within civics and citizen organizations, which is what my organization is. It's just a purely citizen organization. I don't get paid a dime to do anything. In the 15 years that I've worked, I've never paid a dime. In fact, I've paid to do it. And it's really just for a love of our country and also a determination to protect our rights. And so the more citizens that are involved, the government can't get away with things like this as easily.
So if somebody thinks or believes that their rights are being infringed upon or violated, what's the first thing that they should do?
Definitely the first thing they should, well, the thing that is difficult is, I mean, you do just need a good lawyer, constitutional lawyer that understands your rights very well, and then they can help you. But also try to contact the media, try to contact, put it out on social media. It's just try to get as much attention to it, because the more attention, again, the less likely they'll be able to be successful with something that is false or something that you're being attacked for unfairly.
Now, we also, the part of the problem too is that in the time that we live in right now, a lot of people feel powerless and kind of disconnected from the government, which is understandable when you look at the monstrosity that we have. And I'm talking about the federal level,
Right.
And in some ways also at the state as well. I mean, there's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of red tape to deal with in state government as well. And, that's why it's important to get involved in your local government and stay on top of them, because, it's the step ladder, local,
Exactly.
state, and federal. But again, we live in a time where a lot of people do feel powerless and do feel disconnected. So someone like us, someone that's involved in public advocacy and exploring these controversial issues and discussing these things and bringing them forward, what do you believe our responsibility is at this moment in history?
Well, the answer is people have to get involved, even if they feel overwhelmed by it, because the solution is we need more citizens to do just a little bit. And there's so many different organizations in each state. There are so many good people. There's different organizations that people can join, and you can just give what you can. If it's not very much, then that is okay. But what I know is that the Lord expects us to do what we can, and if we're doing that, then we can turn to Him with confidence for help. And I can tell you that this country would not have been founded without very specific miracles that took place.
Oh, yes.
And
Very
it's
true.
the same right now. We won't be able to continue without miracles to help that to happen. And I want you to know that the Lord is just as aware of us now as He was during the founding. And we will have miracles if the citizens do what they can and then they turn to the Lord for help. And so the answer is you have to get involved. You can't just step back and say, well, I'm too overwhelmed. Everybody can do something. Everybody can do a little bit. And at the end of the day, it's not our ability that will make America continue to go. It will be God that does that. But we have to do
Agreed.
our part.
I agree with you 100%. That's fantastic. And I'm glad you brought that up. Because one of the things that irks me, and I don't know if you know or not, but like I said, I do teach a Sunday Bible study show. I go through these things. I served as an associate pastor in a church up in New York City for a short period of time. I've been to Bible school. I've done all that stuff. I've done street preaching. I'm active in church. I do all that stuff. The one thing that irks me is when I hear Christians say, we shouldn't be involved in government. That troubles me greatly.
Yes. I couldn't agree more with you how troubling that is. We have a moral obligation, a moral responsibility to be involved because, and I can tell you, there are so many good things that have been done in Utah from the citizens, things that I've been involved in, other things that I haven't been involved in, but I've seen it happen from other organizations. We've been able to stop bills, change bills, pass bills that were really important. I mean, there is so much that we've been able to do in Utah, even though we still have problems, we know, but we just have a moral obligation to be involved, and that really is the bottom line.
Absolutely. We should be involved in government. We should, and even if it's just praying for your elected officials. I mean,
yes.
The Apostle Paul tells us over and over and over again to pray for them who have rule over you.
Yes. If you are a listener that you're saying, I really can't do anything with time, but you just heard it. You can be a prayer warrior for America, right. for your state, for your city, and for your elected officials. And I'm telling you, that will make and is making a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, and you may not even like the person that's in office, but you know what?
Yep.
God sets up and takes down kings.
Exactly.
So that person is there because God allowed him to be there. And it's our responsibility to pray for that person. Look, I did not care for Joe Biden. I prayed for him every day, though.
Right. See, and that's such a good example. And that is absolutely the truth.
Killed me to do it.
Yes.
I did. It's still.
Good for you. So, and that's what it is. I mean, if they're in office and that's who we have to work with, even if we don't agree with them, then we need to pray that they will be open to inspiration, that they will be able to have success, because then that's what's good for our community. And so that's absolutely true.
Absolutely. Now, of course, you've been doing the public advocacy for 15 years, more or less, right?
Yes.
What's the personal cost of becoming a public advocate, especially on these controversial issues?
Well, and I definitely don't think everybody needs to get as involved as I have gotten involved because, do you know what? I I really have just felt that I was called, that it is, besides raising my boys, that this is what I'm supposed to do on earth. So I have done things that you just think, how in the world, why would I do that? And it's just, it's so time consuming. It's the lack of sleep. It is just the constantly things weighing on you that you've got to get done. And of course, there are times that you might get attacked by somebody else, and I will not participate in that kind of behavior. But yeah, just not too long ago, there's a very liberal man that used to work for the Salt Lake Tribune, one of the main newspapers here. He actually got fired from the Tribune, and he did a specific hit piece just on me. And I'm like, well, you must not have very much to do if you picked me. But anyways, I guess we'll just take it as a compliment. But I mean, there is, but I don't think everybody doesn't need to get involved to the extent I am, but everybody can do something.
Agreed.
But definitely my family, they just know I'm always very busy, and I've got my constant list of things to do. And my husband does a lot too, and we just feel that that's what we're supposed to do, to stand for correct principles, the youth, just all of those things. But at the end of the day, I do it because I just feel so strongly about it. And I'll
Well said.
just keep doing it until my last breath. So the battle rages.
Well said. That's great. I like that. That's well said. Well said. So we're going to start to wrap this up here. So I just got a couple more things for you now. So if every listener remembered one thing from this conversation tonight, what would you want it to be?
Okay, if every listener needs to remember that the genius of the Constitution is the limitation of the federal government, and that the enumerated powers in the Constitution are the specific jobs the federal government is given to do. That little piece, if everybody can remember that and tell their family members, tell your kids, it really helps bring an understanding to the Constitution, because that is it in a nutshell.
Great. I like that. That's great. So who's someone that you respect, and what are they doing, what have they done that inspires you?
Oh, you know what? There are so many different people that I respect. And it's like you can go in your family, or I go into politics, where I have a lot of different friends. But you know what? I would just say that I have a friend. His name is Ken Ivory, and he is a legislator here in the state of Utah. But I really do respect Ken because I know he's doing it for the right reasons. He's the chair of the Federalism Commission.
Okay.
He is working tirelessly to try to bring more awareness, working with Democrats and Republicans. He has gone through a lot, and he ran a bill to help get inappropriate material out of the public schools.
Good.
You would not believe the amount of attacks that he got. It was unbelievable. And so I'm just going to give a shout out to him because he is a dear friend. I know firsthand some of the sacrifices that he's making. And you know what? There's a whole bunch of other people just like him across this country. And that is why America is still going. That's why the experiment for self-government is succeeding, and it's because of people like that.
That's great. Fantastic. I like it. Very good. All right. Well, Jen, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I really do appreciate taking the time. And again, this did not disappoint. This is exactly where I thought it was going to go. I knew I wasn't going to get through all the questions I had for you because we were just going to.
Time goes so fast.
It does. It does. Very fast. And I knew that we weren't going to get through it all. But I think we hit the important things that people really, really need to understand about the foundation of our government, our Declaration, our Constitution, why it's important that we remember to celebrate that, especially now, this 250th anniversary of it. And it's incredibly important. I think you articulated it beautifully. So thank you very much for that. So where can folks go to find out more about you and about your work?
They can go to utahconstitution.com, and that's our website. And if there's people that want to do something similar in another state, I'm very happy to communicate and talk to people about how I organize things and put it together. So
outstanding. Fantastic. All right. Well, Jen, again, thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm going to put you backstage. Just hang out there for like 5 minutes. I'm going to wrap up the rest of the show, and I'll touch base with you before we disconnect.
Thank you for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Jen Brown, folks. Make sure you check her out. Check out her website. Really important work here. Thanks, Jen. I'll see you in a minute. All right, folks. Like we've said it throughout the entire show. The Constitution doesn't only protect us when times are easy. It exists precisely for the moments when fear, emotion, politics, and power tempt us to compromise the rights and freedoms we often take for granted. Now, whether you agree with everything we talked about tonight or not, I hope the conversation here encourages you to do something, I guess, increasingly rare in America today. Read, think, ask questions, become engaged. Our system of government was never designed for a passive citizen. It absolutely was not. It was designed for informed citizens. The Constitution is not self-executing. Freedom requires participation. Liberty. We don't use that word enough. Liberty. It's one of the most beautiful words in every document that we have at our founding. And one thing, I didn't mention to Jen, and I should have, and you guys heard me say this before, and this is no disrespect or knock against the World War II generation, but I don't think that they were the greatest generation. I think the greatest generation was our founding generation. They set out to create a country, a free country, and pass that down to generation after generation after generation. That's the greatest generation, in my opinion. You can disagree with me, that's fine, but that's my opinion on that. Self-government requires responsibility. Absolutely does. Because it's not just self-government in the sense of a civil government. It's also self-government of yourself. The better we are, the less them we need. Self-government. That's the principle. So again, a real sincere thank you to Jen Brown for joining us tonight. Folks, thank you for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you guys being here. Shout outs, of course, to our producing team, executive producers, Wayne Rankin, Rosanna Rankin, Carolina Jimenez, Angela Watuski, and of course, John Seeley. Thank you, thank you, thank you. These guys donate their time, their talent, and their treasure to help put this show together each and every episode that we do. So I really do appreciate them. And you know what? That's why we give them the shout out in every show. That's why we include them in all our show notes. That's why we include them in everything that we send out from this show. Because without their support, we wouldn't be able to do it. So they are our producers. And we're working on getting that credential set up through IMDb so they can add that to their resume. So we're working on that. As soon as that gets approved, I'll be really excited to make that announcement. But if you want to find out more about how you can help us out, just head over to our website, joerooz.com/support. That's joerooz.com/support. And you can find out all the different ways, from one-time donation to recurring donations to signing up as producers. It's all right there on the website, so please head over there and check it out. And I think that should just about do it for us here for tonight. So with that said, folks, thank you so much for being with us. I really, really do appreciate it. And remember, the website, joerooz.com. Check it out. Send us over a message. Let us know what you think. Any thoughts, questions, comments, cares, concerns. Love to hear from you guys. All right. I think that should do it, right? All right. Folks, make Texas independent again. Go podcasting. Keep a steady stride. More important than anything else, though, you have to keep talking. Good night, folks. We will see you next time.